Hi everyone, we're into lesson 6.2 and we're currently looking at Playmaker, and we're going to figure out how to use a keyboard command to trigger something inside our game, which is a theatre experience. Now, we started looking at in Playmaker in the last lesson, understand the way that you can capture and send data. This time we're going to do something a little bit simpler than that. We're just going to create a keyboard command. Now, we're going to do this inside a light. So I'm going to create a particular light. In fact, I'll take one of the ones I've already got here. We've got a spotlight here, or we've got our directional light. Let's take this directional light here, which is quite bright. I want something that's really obvious when it turns on and off, that we can really see it. So that'll be quite obvious. So all we're going to do is turn on and off this light. It's going to be really easy. So while we've got it selected, the directional light, we're going to right-click in the FSM window of Playmaker, add FSM, and it will add the little symbol that says it's a Playmaker item. Now, we've got to create a flow of events here. So we need to think about the logic of what's going to happen and then write that in. So when the object starts, we need a state that's just going to wait. It's going to wait for our command. So I always call that wait. So I'm going to change that name to wait. And then it's going to listen for a keyboard command. When it gets a keyboard command, it's going to create a new state, which is light on. And then when it's finished, it's going to get another keyboard command, which is going to turn it off, and it's going to go back to the wait, where it's going to turn the light off. So it's actually kind of two things. So it's wait and light off, like that, okay? Now we need to create some events. These are the things that go between those states. So this is what happens when everything's on, or when it's off, and this is what happens when it's on. How do we get there? So we think about the action that's going to happen. What's going to occur? So we're going to click on the event button here and create some events. So it's going to be really simple. We're going to use the space bar as our command. So we're going to do get spacebar. This can be anything. This can be whatever names you like to use. It doesn't have to be in code language. And then we're going to create another one, which is going to be get spacebar. But even though nothing changes in terms of code, we're going to add to that light off. So it's clear that the second spacebar is doing something different to the first. It won't let you have two events that are the same, because it's trying to listen to what's going on. So we need to put them together now. So if this is the state where we're listening to the keyboard command, we've had the keyboard command, we then need to join that to this one using the spacebar event. So we right-click on that and add a transition. And the transition's got a few in there already that you could use. Like finished is quite helpful, use that all the time. I'm gonna use get spacebar. And it says, right, it's got an exclamation mark. You've got to look out for these. Look there, let's have a look. What's it saying? Transitions missing a target state. That's because we have to connect it to the light. So we're connecting that to the command for the light. And now we're going to connect this back in the same way, add transition, get spacebar light off, and connect it back with itself. So now what will happen is that when we press spacebar, it will move from here to this one. And then when we hit spacebar again, it'll move from this one to this one. Really simple. And let's just see if that works. So we're going to hit play. And it's really important that you have the game itself selected, because that's where your keyboard commands are being picked up. So it's green, it says it's waiting in this section at the moment. So it's listening, it's not doing anything. If I hit spacebar, it will then move to the next one. But it didn't. Why didn't it move? Because we haven't told it to yet, right? So let's go and add in some actions so it knows what to do. So the first one, action browser, we're going to look for a get key. And we want get key down. Now there's three different types. There's get key down, and get key up. If you do a get key up, it will only send the action when you release the key. If you do a get key down, it'll do it when it goes down. And get key, I think it just does it either way, as soon as it sees some sort of reaction on that key, whether it's up or down. But I do think sometimes it goes wrong and it sends a double command, because you get one on the down and one on the up, which may not be a problem. Like if you're doing a character walking, you want to hold the key and it just keeps doing it, that's fine. But I think what we want for this is get key down. So as soon as you press down, you get the command. So we double click on that, and there we are, get key down. It's created in here, get key down. So what do we want to do? Key, first we want to choose what it's going to be, which key we're going to choose. We're going to look for our space bar. So where's space bar? There it is, space. So now when it hears the space bar command, it's going to send an event. What event are we going to send? Well, we already said it here, is get space bar. Get spacebar. We could have called it light on. That's the other way of doing it, but that would have confused us a little bit with the names of the states. And store result, we don't need to do. That's if you wanted to store that fact that somebody's pressed a button and keep it as a value for something else. And then we do the same on the other direction. Do the same thing. Get key down. Let's choose a spacebar. We could choose something else for the way back, but let's just keep it on this. And you could have copied and pasted this as well. And we can do get spacebar light off. Now, if I selected the other one, if I selected get spacebar, nothing will happen because it can't find that transition. That transition's not part of its state. Now, I could have added another transition, so it's got two. So I could have said if you get spacebar, then you do that one to something else and it goes to a new state. And you could have, hundreds of these for all the different types of inputs you could put in that all go to different commands. So you could have a waiting state like this, where you've got 30 or 40 transitions depending on the key state you've got coming in. So now let's try it and see if it's working. Now what we should see is the green box around the wait should move when I hit spacebar. There we go. So it's jumping between the two. Now we created our first ever keyboard command. But it's not doing the lights yet. So let's sort that out. Now what happens is when the light goes on, we need to tell the light to physically turn on. So let's click and drag this light item here in here. Now you have got light commands in. If you type in light, we can do a set light color, set light type, set light intensity. So you could actually do a command that changes it. So you could have an arrow up that keeps increasing the light intensity and an arrow down that keeps lowering it by adding to it. But there's sort of the maths and that gets a little bit complicated. We can do that another day. But I like the idea of just dragging in. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'll click this, drag it in, and I'm going to set property. Now I could go into lights here and I could do all those same things that it listed, set light color, set light intensity, but I'm not. I'm just going to do set property, because to turn this light on and off, there's only one thing we need to do. We just need to tick and untick this box. All this other stuff isn't really necessary to do that. It's a cleverer way of doing it, but it's just more work. So for property, all we're going to do is we're going to find the one that turns it on and off, makes it active. So where is it? Enabled. There we go. When enabled is set to on, it will turn it on. When it's set to off, it will turn it off. So we need two of these. We need one in this state here for light on. So set value to on. So that's on. And then in the off, let me just show copy and paste. Right. So I'm going to right click on this. Copy selected action, and I'll go to this one. I'll just do paste actions, and then rather than having it on, I'll just make it off. We don't need every frame turned on because it would only do it when it receives the command, so it doesn't have to listen all the time. It just listens for the command, as opposed to getting data constantly on tick. And there's one other thing that we might want to do, and that is that when we turn the experience on, because the light's meant to be off, when this activates, it's going to turn this light off because that is our first state. Because we turned it around so that you press the button to turn it on. It doesn't start on and turn it off. So we actually need to turn it off to start with, because otherwise it will just turn it off when the scene starts and it's just doing more thinking. So let's turn the light off. Okay, so now it's off. And if I hit play now, it should stay off until I hit spacebar. Right, okay, so the light's off. Okay, see the box is unticked and the green box is over here. I hit spacebar. There we go. It's just clicked it on and it's jumped to here, and I've hit spacebar again. It's going to turn it off because it's now moved to this command, and we told it to turn off. So now we've got a way of turning on and off lights. Now, if you were trying to do designs for a whole load of shows, you might want to create a load of different functional lights. You might have a set of backlights. You might have a side light. You might have sort of a front fill or something. And when you're creating your storyboards or you're creating images from it, you could just use a number pad. So you just every time you hit one, it turns on and off one of those components of lights. Number two could turn on off your backlight. You could actually do that by scenes. You could turn on off your scene objects. Now we did a light, but let's just flip this around a little bit. Let's take, remember, never do anything in play mode because it disappears. Without changing the names and everything, because you'll understand, I hope. Let's go into our 3D stage and let's grab our scenery, just the entire node there. Let's click and drag that in as well. Game object. Now actually this is really handy when you use an empty. It does actually give you this activate game object, so we don't have to go into set property and find the button enabled. Just go activate game object. We're going to say it's off, and then this one we can turn it back on again. 3D stage scenery. So click that game object, activate game object, activate. Okay, now this time I'm not going to turn it off in the scene editor. You'll notice that when I turn it on, as soon as it starts, it will get to this command and it will receive the command to turn it off. So there, it's turned it off automatically. And now when I hit spacebar, it turns on my light and my scenery. So you might want to build commands, one for each of your bits of scenery, or maybe your scenes, and you could go like, if I press number 1, it turns on scene 1. You press it again, it turns off scene 1. Number 2 turns on scene 2. Number 2 turns it off. So you could start to construct your show in that way by using these bits of code. So that's enough on buttons. In the next lesson, we're going to cover UI buttons, which is exactly the same, but what we can do is rather than having a keyboard command, a get key down, we're going to replace it with a button command. So I'll see you in the next lesson.